So welcome, eventing podcast listeners, to another Red Mills Rider special. It's me, Sam Watson, again, but I'm joined by one of my best mates, and I have to say a huge hit the last time we did one of these. It is Camilla Speirs. How are you, Speirsy?
Good, thanks, Sammy. How are you?
Good. I think we're under pressure, actually, because you were one of our first ever locker room talk kind of one-to-one rider interviews that we did.
Really? That's interesting. Well, that was a while ago, so...
It was a while ago, and it was one of our most downloaded ever episodes. So, yeah, you were a fan. We'll maybe attribute some of that to Jiff.
Yeah, my claim to fame.
How is the little man?
He's absolutely great. He's enjoying his retirement, looking after all the young horses, the yearlings and the 2-year-olds, and he's still coming in every day and been ridden. The girls in the yard, Tanya and Katie, will fight over who gets to ride him every day. But yeah, no, he's in great form.
So talk to me about life after Jiff, like having to, obviously the horse of a lifetime, and then you kind of have to rebuild again. Like, what was your, did it leave a bit of a hole straight away, or did you instantly miss not being at badminton the next year? What's it like?
Yeah, it's funny, and I still always think, like, God, if only I had this horse now. But I think there's very few horses, and you're probably in the same boat a bit with me as George. With George, there's probably very few horses that are as forgiving as Jiff. So I was very lucky I could make my mistakes very young. So actually, if I got him now, I probably wouldn't have had the experience that I got from him with another horse. But yeah, no, it did leave, it certainly left a big hole, but it never felt like, it didn't feel like a loss, just because I think, I don't know, maybe I always try to be glass half full type person, and I always think of like the opportunities that he brought me and what I have to do to build my yard back up to have a string of Jiffs. Obviously he's one of a kind, but I kind of took what I learned at those big events and championships, and just said, okay, now what I know, I need to look for the horse that's actually going to win a medal, as opposed to just get me there. And my God, it's hard, but I'm really, really excited about the string of horses I'm starting to build up. So yeah, it's all about tweaking things, isn't it? And getting a system in place. And I kind of have a string of horses now where I can, just, I feel I'm feeling really comfortable in the system that I've got. Do you
kind of think about an end goal and work back from that, like a big massive end goal, like an Olympics or like winning badminton or something like that, or do you just think about producing horses, finding good horses, producing the best you can? Like, where's your mindset at? What sort of motivates you day to day?
No, I definitely don't think of too far in the future. I think firstly because it becomes it puts a lot of pressure on both you and the horse, and I think you don't want to get emotional about those things. If you set an Olympics or a 5-star for a certain horse that doesn't get there, you don't want to feel like that horse has let you down, because at the end of the day they're horses. So I don't think it's fair to put that pressure on them, and I just think, like, I wouldn't say by any means I coast along, but in a way I let the horse show me what they have, and I work with that. And some horses just surprise you. I have a horse there at the minute. He's only 8. We're heading to Boekelo next week. He came into my yard as a 6-year-old, having never evented, in September, and he was a big horse and he wasn't all that simple, and then all of a sudden you feel something click and they kind of surprise you, and that's because I think I gave him time and, you know, just been patient with him. So yeah, I think that's kind of the way I like to be. But I mean, some horses definitely show you a spark from an early age.
You like producing your own youngsters. I'd say I'd be a little bit the same as well. There's that reassurance in knowing them when you do start getting to events like Boekelo and beyond that. It's nice to feel like you know them inside out. That's important to you. Do you ever have one eye open for something a little bit further up the grades, or do you love that kind of starting almost with that raw material and shaping it the way you want to shape them?
I mean, we always used to buy 3-year-olds. Now we're kind of looking more at 4 and 5-year-olds. So in a sense, yeah, we're looking for a bit older, but I
think still young by most people's standards.
Yeah, probably. Like, it's just, you know, when you go to buy a 7, 8, 9-year-old, the price has gone up a lot more. So not only they're hard to find, they're also extremely expensive. So it's just about being on the ball and sharp enough to buy a nice 4 and 5-year-old that, you know, no one else has seen yet. Sort of a diamond in the rough, you could say. So you're paying not too much money, and then it becomes more valuable.
Shut up, dogs. I'll be editing that bit out. So then, like any rider, and I suppose this is quite relevant particularly for Irish riders, because there's different cultures in different countries. You know, some people in England, there are an awful lot of owners, and riding horses professionally on a salary for training that horse is quite a regular thing. There's quite a lot of owners to go around over there. America, there's an awful lot of emphasis on teaching, and that's a big part of a lot of riders' business models. In Ireland, it's usually been about producing horses and selling horses, and I know you well enough to know that you know there's always clients in the yard. You have these beautiful young horses, and is that hard for you, half thinking about your own dreams and half thinking about that, well, you know, I've got to keep the system going. I've got to have a little bit, there's got to be turnover. It's part of all our lives. Do you struggle with that, or do you get a kick and a buzz out of doing that as well?
I mean, yeah, the selling part is important because, you know, it keeps the whole show on the road. And certainly everything does have a price. I'm lucky enough to have my mum as such a huge supporter, who shares the same goals as me in terms of, you know, wanting to get and have a couple of horses at the top again. And so, you know, we'll often sit down and say, right, you know, we'll see a nice young horse. Okay, will I buy this, or do you want to buy this? You know, so that she'll say, well, I really like this horse, I think it'll get to the top, I'll buy this one. And, you know, it's, if someone comes along with the right money, that can still be for sale. But the ones that I buy are all for sale. And, you know, often I'll buy a horse off mum, or I'll buy a horse and she'll buy it off me. And, you know, it's, you got to keep the ball rolling. But like I say, I'm very, very lucky in that I have that support from her to say, okay, right, we're going to invest in this to try and move up the grades and get to the top. So yeah, it's great. And also a friend of mine, Orla O'Neill, has, you know, she's bought into a couple of horses, and she's a little bit the same. She says, you know, you deserve to be back up the top with a nice horse. It's, you know, what you've done. You've produced so many horses up the grades, and she's kind of there as well, investing and supporting in me. So yeah, you know, you kind of I say just play it by ear, I guess. I'm one of these people, I let things roll. Things work out the way they're supposed to.
Well, it's nice. It's nice that you have, you know, it's a close-knit team, and you're kind of in it together, and in it probably for the same goals as well, which is nice. You've got Boekelo coming up, which was the scene of one of your biggest results with Jiff finishing second at Boekelo is a huge result. Obviously with a young, inexperienced first timer this time, and you've got the Leon coming up after that with nice horses too. It feels to me a little bit looking in like where there's been a rebuilding phase where we've seen a lot of 5-year-olds being contested. Now it feels like we're getting back closer. Where are you kind of chomping at the bit, feeling like these big internationals are coming back around again and looking forward to next year and things like that? Like, are you starting to really feel motivated again?
Yeah, definitely. You know, it's, you spend so many hours and hard days with these horses as youngsters. I mean, SSH Playboy we bought as a 3-year-old, and he's 7 now, so like it's been a long old it seems a long old road getting him to where he is, and he's turned into a fabulous horse. I absolutely love him, and I think he's just getting better and better. And the same with Martin's Masterpiece. You know, we bought him, he was so raw and green, and I remember the first time I even took him out schooling on grass, I said, Jesus, how in the name of God am I going to get this horse going? But again, he just, you know, they step up to it. And, you know, there is a point where they turn a corner and they show you that spark. And he's done that for me this year, you know, in Tats, Campfire, Kaliki, Mill Street, all internationals where I've just gone, wow, like all double clear. He's just been super. So yeah, it is exciting. It's nice to be back at the big events and with the big riders, and I think I'm a rider. I love a bigger stage. You're laughing at me.
No, well, we are all our own little. I think athletes are. I think whether they're open and honest about being a bit of a showman, or whether even, I think when people are quite quiet externally, I think everyone who can deliver on the big stage, they clearly benefit, you know, they revel in being in front of crowds, don't they? So I think you want that stage, really. It means you're doing well. If you're an athlete with ambitions, you don't really want to be competing in a field with 5 people watching you. You want to be in a stadium with packed to the rafters. Yeah.
No, I think so, and that's taken a while as well. You kind of, like, even with Jiff, you kind of, like, I came up through the levels so young. I still didn't know, it sounds kind of cringy, but I didn't know who I was as a rider. You know, you're still a bit insecure in yourself, and you know what works. And I think having just been working on the young horses and as well doing a bit of jumping with them, so okay, I'm not at a big 4-star show, but I'm at, like, you know, a show where it's challenging for them, and you want to do a good job. It kind of, you start to figure out kind of where you are at as a rider and what you want. And for me, being out of it, I'm kind of like, I can't wait to be back up with a string at the top again. I love it.
You have been doing a lot of jumping, and I think that helps you. I think you touched there on pushing the comfort zone a little bit, and I think that can be the challenge in eventing when it's such a like those long format events are it's like a marathon really for a runner, and you don't do more than a couple of marathons a year, so there's only so many times that you can get yourself to the likes of Boekelo, going into show jumping on the last day. You're not going to be able to do that too many times in a year, so you've been using the show jumping a little bit to push yourself and to push some of those younger horses a little bit to see what they're made of and get used to a bigger stage.
Yeah, definitely. I think all these things shape you as a rider and as a competitor. I mean, I remember doing the charity race a few years ago, back in 2016, and then I had badminton.
Was that at Punchestown?
That was at Punchestown. I rode a horse for Jessie Harrington, and I remember when I said I was going to do it, I went and I had lessons so that I could, like, even if I came last, at least I did it looking stylish.
Okay.
So I was on the simulator with Warren O'Connor, like 3 times a week, and I was so fit. And okay, it was great raising money for charity, but from a selfish point of view, it was great for my riding, and you know, I think it's the same with the jumping. I remember the first time I went to a proper jumping 5-year-old class was with a 5-year-old who was just so sharp and so hardy and tough that I was like, right, you can go and this will soften your calf, you know, go. He was as cocky as anything, and taking him into a big green open field, I don't think was going to educate him how I wanted. So I did a bit of jumping, and yeah, look, I'm well able to jump at quite fences, but actually when you go in on a really green young horse, you have to just be a bit sharper, and as well competing alongside those guys who are masters at it, it makes you step up your game. And so the last few years I have focused on really trying to just polish that up, and as well going into, like I say, I haven't had anything to really make my heart beat and say like, okay, this is going to be a challenge here, because you're producing the young horses, but like getting to Dublin this year with my 5-year-old, Dublin's a big ordeal, so you're kind of saying like, geez, I need to nail this now, and it kind of gets the heart rate going, and it's a buzz, to have come out and jumped a clear on the second day. I'm missing out by 1 place for the final, but it felt like a real achievement. So that kind of gives you a boost as well. I think all these things just shape me as a rider and
keep you on your toes.
Yeah.
And I think I remember being probably a typical event rider in that started with the cross country, which I loved the most, and sort of got me into it, and then you learn the necessary evil of the dressage, and you spent hours going around in circles.
I'd still mistake you for Carl Hester.
And then thanks, Speirs. and then the one thing that got left behind for me was the show jumping, and I never really studied it or understood it properly or had a background in that phase, so it was kind of, that became the phase that I struggled with for a bit. And if I could give advice to people starting out, or if I could go back and start again myself, I would say that actually it's the easiest thing it's the easiest phase to go and get in the ring, put yourself under pressure. You'll sometimes get into those jump offs as well. Do a bit of that. I think it's all so beneficial for us as event riders to do that, and you're held accountable to your mistakes. The poles come down, and if you make a mistake, you're not going to get away with it. So I think it's something that, and we've seen the standard of it really increasing in eventing as well. It's very hard to.
I think what really pushed me more into it, I think, was coming into the senior squad and training with Ian Fearon, who's been a huge influence in my riding, not just my show jumping riding, but my riding and getting stuck into the horses. And it's not just about point to that fence and see a good stride, and it's so much more than that. And you kind of I felt like I really wanted to explore that more, and I work with Ian a lot. We're lucky as eventers, we have the flat work, so we understand them, and that's so important to the jumpers as well. And it's it's helped all of my riding, be it riding on the flat, not necessarily dressage, but just riding on the flat even, and cross country. And I think as well, young horses, I think, can understand show jumping. Okay, the fences vary and the lines change, but they can understand it. So I think I really like it for building a young horse's confidence, a 4-year-old, because there's nothing there that's really going to catch them out. They do enough courses of fences, and they start to learn, and then when you move them eventing, I think they have it figured out. And so I've kind of moved more away from the young event horse classes into producing them in the show jumping ring, because they can get into an atmosphere as well, and then I find they've taken to eventing really, really well. Like, they're not in any way behind than if they were doing lots of cross country schooling and young event horse classes.
Interesting. You mentioned Ian Fearon, who obviously I've trained with a lot and was a huge for me out of the saddle as well. He knew exactly when to support me. His language, he knew I needed confidence. He knew that was the biggest thing, and I thought his read on that was incredible, and he would be one of the people for me, and I think he is for you as well, a huge part of your career. I'm going to throw probably a difficult question at you. Are there other people either in the sport or out of the sport that have helped you a lot, or even people outside of the sport that you might never have met but you look up to and you think things that they did really inspire you, or things that you try and mimic and things like that help you? Like what are the properties that you value in terms of trying to do your job? You've been around the world, you've been to Olympic Games, you've been to badmintons, but are there people maybe it is people just helping you, people like Ian that have been around you, but are there other people outside of the sport that you think good role models for you, good role models for other people to look at?
I've not been funny, but you've probably been my biggest helping that then.
Well,
only because you tell me to cut myself on at times when I need it, and also that like not to be too hard on myself. But to be honest, not really. I mean, growing up, I'd say I watched Pippa Funnell's DVD every second day. I was obsessed, but not really. I study a lot of people's riding for different things. I mean, Michael Young, obviously, cross country is just amazing. Ingrid on the flat. I wouldn't say I necessarily follow one person. I'm very aware that, like, you know, everyone is different. They have their own. If I can just be in a confident place for myself and then just take tidbits from like different people, I'm happy with that. I think if you take someone's word as gospel, it sometimes limits you from thinking outside the box. And I always like to think outside the box a little bit. Yeah, as I say, it's funny, like I was actually in Lanniken last week, and seeing the Irish do so well there. That's the
World Breeding Championships in show jumping.
Yes, for young horse, 5, 6 and 7 year olds. And just seeing those guys, like, that was amazing because they're so competitive, and that gives you, like, you can't wait to actually go home and Jesus get into the ring and go for it. And when I go to badmintons or watching Burley even on TV and just seeing the good people do it well, it's a great buzz. And eventing is an amazing sport for that, and unfortunately, you know, you can see it's not easy, and the best do have.
Well, I think you mentioned Pippa and her. I suppose I think that what was such a funny moment, certainly probably for our generation, is that she was so many people's hero and idol. Then you sort of have this, I mean, nearly a 10-year period, it was nearly a decade where you think, oh God, Pippa's human. Like, she's not the person that was on the you know, we've competed with her, against her.
Yeah, it was
usually
pretty,
behind her. But to see exactly her have to go through all the ups and downs that she's been through, and to come back and win it was really cool moment at Burley.
Well, to think, like, her career was back when I was watching the DVD and reading her books, like, that was her career, and like her career is just still like rocketing. It's pretty incredible, and I guess we're lucky in that eventing like experiences is there, it gives you the upper hand by a long stretch. We're lucky in our sport, in all equestrian sports, really.
It's very true. You're still a very young rider, particularly from eventing standards, really. Do you see yourself branching out or doing other things, or do you, as I say, that taste that you've had of all those top events in the sport, is that where your mind is still at the moment? Where are you? What are you thinking?
God, I would be rubbish at anything else. Jesus, I can't imagine myself doing anything else that doesn't involve horses. I have
to say, your passion and enthusiasm for your horses it's infectious, and I'm also sometimes quite jealous of it, in that whether it's their first show or their first jump at home or whatever it is, like I just, the smile and there'll be a video of it, and I think that is great, and that's why the amount
of times I've turned around and said, Jesus, Sam, I bought the best horse I've ever owned.
I know, that's
the best horse I ever sat on. Every
time Camilla pulls out her phone and says, "Oh, Sam, I got this video of this horse," I ask her, "Is this the best horse you've ever seen?" But it's great. That's I can see why you will always have that. I don't think it'll ever feel like you're doing the same thing year after year. I think you genuinely, every horse is like a new child that you're trying to get the best out of, and that's cool.
As well, buying the young horses, I really know what I'm looking for myself. I'm not saying that I know what the best horse is, but I'm saying what I want, I know. So I'll see hundreds of nice horses, but there might be, okay, I don't like that, okay, I don't like that, okay, this horse I really like, I like everything about it. And that's not to say it's the best horse out of the bunch, but for me, what I'm looking for, and that comes with when you're buying young horses and riding them and producing them up the levels. I think, if you're not buying them and producing them up to a certain level, be it 3-star, 4-star, I don't think really what you want to continue looking for, because suddenly what you think is the best young horse gets to a point and there's certain traits that are making it difficult for him to progress up. Okay, so now I'm thinking, okay, I need to avoid that more, or look for something with a better canter, or look for something with a yourself, or a good brain. So it takes time.
It has. It's been interesting to hear, I think, some really useful and interesting kind of things that you've been obviously developing and working on with developing this new string. And I'm going to give you like the meanest question of all, and it's almost impossible, and you're probably going to offend either Orla or your mum or someone. But if you could tell our listeners which horse you feel, and this probably changes from day to day because it does for me, I don't know how I'd answer this question, but you might be able to answer this question. Which horse do you think is that one that you think, badminton prize giving in a few years' time?
God, that's so hard. There's so many of them. There is so many of them. I guess, so I don't offend anyone, I'm gonna go with BT Angelo is a seriously exciting horse who's owned by Orla.
He's a 6-year-old now, is he?
He's 6. He's owned by Orla and my mother and myself. So
that was the diplomatic answer.
Yeah. I'm really lucky I have a good string, and I also have a couple of nice jumpers there as well, who won't go eventing, who will stay jumping. So that's quite exciting as well. To have that, keep progressing in that. Once I get a taste of something, I want to keep challenging myself. So I'm looking forward to having you back on Irish teams again, and at those big events, and enjoy Boekelo, and very best of luck at Boekelo, and enjoy the Leon, and thank you so much for coming on the show again. Thank you, Sammy. Thanks for having me. Pleasure.